voice acting is fantastic. The performances are really good and weird and so bizarre. The game also just has, I think, one of the best and most surprising levels I've ever played in the 2020s and just in quite some time. I had the biggest smile on my face playing that part. I was like, I thought like, oh, it's gonna end, and then it didn't end. And then after that part, I was like, oh, it's gonna end, and then it didn't end again. And then I was like, okay, this is it, right? And it's like, no, we got one more for you. And I was like, oh my god. And so that is when it was that level that I fell in love with it. I was like, and after that, I was so invested. And now, my friends, we can go ahead and we can move on to the next part of my show today. And that is my top 10 best video games of 2023. Now, sadly, I was not able to play as many games as I would have wanted. There were a ton of titles that I was like, oh, I can't wait to get to this and play this. But, you know, I still played a lot of great games this past year. Some amazing titles, some that I still have to, like, obviously finish. But I feel like I've played enough of them where I can speak on them in great detail. But I think, yeah, this particular year was very, very good. I know everyone had like their individual favorites, you know, like Baldur's Gate or Spider-Man 2, and some really fun smaller titles as well. A lot of great indie games that were actually mentioned beforehand, like, you know, Day of the Diver or Dredge, two games I really wanted to play. But I was able to put a top 10 list together. I was also able to get 2 honorable mentions in there. Sadly, I wasn't really able to play those games. I was able to play like the demos for those, but I was impressed enough with the demos that I will eventually play those on stream and will check them out. Just, you know, just my busy schedule, Chad. Like I said, when it came to my best of and worst of for like movies and TV lists, you know, I was able to see a lot, but obviously not able to see absolutely everything. It's very difficult to do so, but we can go ahead and we can get right into the list. And I have 2 particular honorable mentions that I want to express my love for, but also desire to like actually play them. And the first one is Lies of P. Now, Lies of P is a Souls-like action role-playing video game. I think it's not produced by like one of the big Souls developers like From Software. I think it's from a company called NeoWiz Games and Roundhouse 8 Studio. A publisher being NeoWiz Games. And it's inspired by the original novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio. And it tells like an alternative version of the events of that book, where Pinocchio, he's a robotic puppet who is fighting in this world that is overrun by a variety of monstrosities, animatronic and puppet monstrosities. He has the unique ability to lie in the game. And with that ability, he's able to make, you know, important decisions throughout the narrative, and then shaping the narrative and creating different scenarios and inevitably like different endings. And it plays very much like a Soulsborne game, very similar to Bloodborne, which is one of my favorite Soulsborne games. And again, I was only be able to play the demo, and again, it was a pretty extensive demo. It wasn't like something that was like 30 minutes long or something. It was like several levels. And I think we at one point, like I encountered like a boss. And so that was actually pretty cool. And I love the look of the world, you know, kind of like, it's like the Victorian age, but going into the industrial age, right? You know, it's the old world entering the new world. I love that we were just like in this, you know, huge Gothic looking city. And it's just littered with all the corpses of many people, but also the corpses of all these animatronics that seemingly went crazy, and you know, everything that looked like these giant abomination-esque tin soldiers and variations on that, and other creatures as well. Like I really like the look of the game a lot. I really enjoyed how it played. Very similar to things that that people have experienced with other Soulsborne games. I don't know if that was like this game was like on a lot of best of lists. It kind of went under the radar, I feel like. I hope it did well because I like the aesthetic, and I like just kind of this new use of Pinocchio. I mean, Pinocchio at this point is like 100+ years old, and we've seen so many different interpretations, adaptations of the character. A lot good and a lot terrible. I mean, just last year we had like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which I actually really enjoy. One of my favorite movies of last year. And then we get like horrible things like, well, Disney's remake of Pinocchio from their, the great classic 1940s film. And they had a horrible movie created by Robert Zemeckis. But at least what I played, I enjoyed. It makes me want to play it more, and hopefully sometime in this new year, in 2024, I will get back to it. But I think it's safe to say that is one of the better, one of the more inspired interpretations and adaptations of the Pinocchio story and character. And the last of my honorable mentions, the last honorable mention I wanted to talk about was Final Fantasy 16. Of course, this is the 16th entry, at least the 16th mainline entry in the Final Fantasy series. There are many, many, many spin-offs, probably dozens upon dozens and dozens. And I'll say this, I've been a long-time Final Fantasy fan. I played many of the classic games back in the day, long before I was streaming, long before I was a content creator. I mean, my favorite to this day is 6. Final Fantasy 6 is incredible, but I have a love and appreciation for 4 and 9 and of course 7 as well, and the other entries. But I definitely fell off with the franchise. I want to say around 10. They were, Square Enix or Squaresoft at the time. I always forget like when they went through the name change. But in any case, I feel like they went in a certain direction that I didn't particularly care for, especially when it came to everything from the battle mechanics to the storytelling. And, for the longest time, I had just not really gotten back into Final Fantasy. And I especially after 13. 13 really bothered me. I think is perhaps one of the worst entries in the franchise. And I attempted to get back into it again with 15, the long-delayed 15, and I know a lot of people like that game. I know there's a pretty passionate audience about it. I really disliked it. The story was absolutely nonsense. I actually liked the battle system in there. That was cool. And I liked the one character who always make the recipes, as he would say, but so much of that title just was a turnoff. It wasn't until Final Fantasy VII Remake that I was like, oh, okay, where I started to really get back into Final Fantasy. And I really liked that title quite a bit. And then, I've seen the trailers for 16 and how it's because for so long, I think so many Final Fantasy games, they kind of, after 7, they had the sci-fi dystopian look for so many of their titles. And I kind of wanted to go back to that fantasy setting that the series started with, and we've seen great iterations on that, whether it be in 4 or 6 or 9, one of my favorite ones. And to see like with 16, it's like, it's like dark fantasy, like aesthetically, it looked like really bloody and at times gory and really mature. I mean, this is an overused, comparison, but it looked Game of Thrones-esque. But I guess maybe that is the apt comparison because from what I gathered from my brief time playing it, again, the demo, which I completed, I really enjoyed. It gave me a sense of the characters, at least some of the characters, and the story and the conflict, and of course the battle system. I guess it's in this world where you have these 2 main continents, and they're divided between these 6 nations who are all competing with each other for power. And I guess certain families, they have access to very powerful magic. And a certain member of their family can become this monstrosity, this god, dominance, I think they refer to them as. And the human host is a host to these monstrosities and these creatures, and I guess there's a conflict escalating between some of the nations, and you play at least in the portion that I played, this character named Clyde. Clive, excuse me, play the character named Clive, who is this guardian to his little special brother named Joshua, who is like playing host to this great and powerful entity. And, a lot of horrible things ensue, which pretty much causes the destruction of the family and creates more of a growing conflict and, later leads to war. At least that's what I played. And I really liked it. I was really into it. But again, it was just one of those games that I wasn't able to get to before the end of the year. But in terms of a prologue, in terms of some of the character interactions I was introduced to, like kind of like the world and how it felt to play, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm really liking this, and so I want to eventually get back to that, and hopefully I can in 2024. But like Liza P, which I put the demo for, I want to give that a shout out because I like that as well. So yeah, those two games really enjoyed. But now we can go ahead and we can get to my 10th best video game of 2023, and that is Warhammer Bolt Gun. And for those who don't know, Warhammer Bolt Gun it's a first-person shooter. It's published by Focus Entertainment, and it's set in the Warhammer 40K universe. Now, I am aware of the Warhammer 40K universe, but I'm like, I can't say I'm like a big fan of it. I've seen like the aesthetics. I know some of you guys are really big fans of it. You talk about the lore. I'm just like, I don't know what any of that means, but it sure does look cool. It sure does look pretty dystopian, and it incorporates fantasy and science fiction, and it's really bloody and really gory, and you follow space marines and chaos space marines and weird abominations that shoot magic fireballs at you. And there's goblins and orcs that birth like babies. I was like, this sounds cool. And it certainly it's cool to play and engage in because in the game, you play as, like, I guess a space marine who's fighting against, like, chaos space marines, and I guess what they're considered also, like, chaos demons, I suppose. And the gameplay and the style, artistically, aesthetically, is, like, super heavily influenced by old school 90s shooters like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. So a lot of like old id games, which I also it's a huge fan of. I was like, oh, I'm always very nostalgic for those types of titles. I played those way back in the day, like the original Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and Doom 2. And so even though like I didn't know what was going on in terms of like the world and its history, the moment-to-moment gameplay I found actually like really enjoyable. I thought it was super fun. It actually made me nostalgic to jump back into some of those classic like id shooters. But I mean, I think even if you're not like a Warhammer fan, its aesthetics and its world is perfect for this type of game, this type of gameplay, because it's just filled with all these horrific monsters and monstrosities and all these like cool, like unique levels and, all these different environments and settings, and you're teleporting from one place to another. You have these snowy settings, these more industrial looking worlds, these, arid canyons and deserts. It was like, I really liked just the aesthetic of it. It was really cool. And I wanted to just, give it a huge shout out because I think it deserves it, because I don't think anyone's like kind of talking about it outside of people who are like really into like old school shooters. So yes, Warhammer Bolt Gun is my number 10. And my ninth best video game of 2023 is Jackbox Party Pack 10. Now, we play a lot of Jackbox games here on my channel. I mean, we've played Jackbox 1 all the way to 9. And I was gifted Jackbox Party Pack 10 by Deadpool. Deadpool in the chat. So thank you so much. And this one has been very fun. We've primarily been playing 2 modes. I guess really one specific mode. But for people that don't know, Jackbox Party Pack, it's just, it's a variety game. Has all these different like unique types of games, whether it be like something like Quiplash, or you come up with like a funny quip that's related to a certain subject, or Fibbage, where you're trying to make up a ridiculous lie. Like there's all sorts of different types of games in these packs, and this one is very much the same. This one I think has 5 specific games in it, though we play like really 2 games in this pack that I think are really fun and I think just great for streaming purposes. We've been playing a lot of TKO 2. We played the original TKO I think you can have up to like 8 players for that one. You can have like 3 to 8 players. And in this, you are given like these drawing tools, and you are tasked with like creating a t-shirt or a hoodie or like a wife beater. You're kind of giving like a line of inspiration. Hey, draw this, or you can just draw whatever you want. And for us, we just draw all sorts of horrible stuff. Just like anything that we would think would make us laugh. Everything from Dirty Sonic Boys to Gimp Daddies. That's what we often create. And you can also create like these little funny statements, these like with like different styles of font and slogans. Really, they're slogans. And when we've played it, it's just been a lot of fun. There's also Time Jinx, which we've played a number of times as well in that particular party pack. And for that one, it's pretty much like a trivia game. It's a trivia game that's themed around years and moments in history where they'll say, like, hey, when did this specific event take place? And we put down the year, and whoever's closer, whoever gets it, and gets points, and that's the whole concept. I think it has like about 3 rounds, and if whoever has the most points by the end, or I think it's whoever has, like, I think it's like golfing or whatever. Whoever's like the lowest points is the winner. That's the whole concept. But in any case, it's a really fun game too. And we learned something, chat. We're getting that edumacation, which I think is so fun. So I always have a great time playing Jackbox with you guys, and I think we'll be playing many more Jackbox party packs to come, chat. Clearly these games do well enough where they keep making more. I think they're clearly cheap. And I also like the aesthetics too. They got some nice artwork. They got a lot of personality, a lot of great little cartoon. I guess they got their own pantheon of characters at this point, which is pretty cool. Not just, from Cookie to as I call her, good old M Bubbles. So it's really neat. But moving on from number 9, we can get to my 8th best video game of 2023, and that is Mortal Kombat 1. Now, I have been a lifelong Mortal Kombat fan for years, playing the original games back in the day on arcade, eventually buying a lot of the games on numerous consoles, especially in like the PS2 era. I started to get back into Mortal Kombat, I want to say in 2011. I really enjoyed that particular Mortal Kombat game, and it kind of acted as a remake, a reboot of the first 3 Mortal Kombats. I played so much of that game back in the day. I think I sold my Wii. I think I was so excited for that game. I was like, I don't want this piece of shit console anymore. Ended up selling the Wii, took whatever money I got from it, and bought Mortal Kombat 11, and have not regretted it ever since. That was such a great game. And then I eventually played Mortal Kombat 10, really enjoyed that. Mortal Kombat 11, played a lot of Mortal Kombat 11, played that on stream here, and then eventually getting Mortal Kombat 1, which acts as, I guess, much in the same way as Mortal Kombat, I guess, 9 from 2011. It acts as another reboot. It's both of it's a reboot to the series, but also as a sequel to 2019's Mortal Kombat 11, where it takes place in a new timeline created by Liu Kang, who's now kind of taking place of Raiden. He's now this god, this fire god. And I guess it also takes place after the events of Aftermath's expansion, dealing with Shang Tsung, and he's it's a more idyllic world, I guess. And Shang Tsung wanted to ensure that like certain people, not Shang Tsung, Liu Kang, definitely not Shang Tsung. Liu Kang wanted to ensure that that his world, that Earth Realm, and that all these other places such as Outworld would not be influenced by the typical villains that we've so often seen in Mortal Kombat's history, such as Shang Tsung, such as Quan Chi, Shao Kahn, right? And that's how what he created. But still got to participate in the rules of Mortal Kombat. But, stuff starts changing, stuff starts happening where it's like, oh, wait, all these specters of the past are returning and are influencing this new timeline, what's going on. That's kind of the story. I actually really like the story quite a bit. Also, what I really liked about it, they did these new reinterpretations of Mortal Kombat characters. I really liked what they ended up doing with characters like Baraka and Reptile. They weren't just kind of like whatever throwaway villains, which, not that they're not iconic. They certainly are. They got really cool abilities, definitely faces of the franchise. But I like that we, how in case of Baraka, he, like, the reason why he looks the way he is because he has he's been infected with this disease, and it's causing like his, face and body to fall apart, and he has all these, that's why he has all these bony protrusions, coming out, which he uses in combat. But he's actually, like, you feel sorry for him and his family. And I was like, oh, wow, I like this. Same for Reptile. Reptile, he's just not just a lizard man. He's not just a guy in a green ninja outfit. It's like, no, we learned, like, why he's doing what he's doing, and it's to protect his family, and he's a hero in the game. I thought that was, like, really, really cool. And then the ending, I don't want to spoil too much. Obviously, people haven't played the story mode, but I love the ending and how they bring in a lot of different versions of other characters. I thought that was like really, really fun. So I liked it. Like, the only thing that really bothered me about the game, and really now a lot of just WB published titles, is that it's so heavily monetized. Like David Zaslav and whatever means says, yep, we're live service, like heavily monetize all these games, microtransactions up the wazoo, up the asshole, up every orifice you got, chat. And so that's really disconcerting. That disappoints me. And I mean, that was also in Mortal Kombat 11, so that definitely sucks. I did not like that. But other than that, I still really enjoy it. Maybe it's not my favorite Mortal Kombat game, but I think it's great. Like, it's got a lot of style to it. It looks really good. It plays very well. We did some great multiplayer matches. I want to do more eventually. But yeah, what I played, I thought was good, and that's why it's my 8th best video game of 2023. But, chap, my 7th favorite video game of 2023 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, I know the Star Wars property is not in the best place right now. They have a whole host of issues going on with the movies and many of the TV shows. But at least for right now, the video games seem to be doing quite well. I mean, Respawn definitely created such a huge hit with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which focused on the runaway Padawan, runaway apprentice, Cal Kestis, and like his adventures. And I really liked it. Borrowing elements of Soulsborne games really shows you that genre just kind of permeating the space, the video game space, and kind of being a bit of an action-adventure, Souls-like experience. Really enjoyed it. And so I was also looking forward to Jedi Survivor, the sequel. It takes place, I believe, like 5 or so years after the events of the previous game. Continues Cal Kestis' adventure. He's now a rebel working with good old Forrest Whitaker, Saw Gerrera, good old him. And he's struggling to survive against the Galactic Empire, but a situation presents itself where they might be able to find a world completely untouched by the Galactic Empire, and they're trying to find a way to get to it, but also encountering enemies from the High Republic era, new villains, betrayal, and everything. They definitely added some quality of life fixes, fast travel, which was the thing that I was like, I really wish fast travel was in the first game. They've added that. But yeah, and they also added all these different styles of lightsaber combat. Like, I think I recall in like the in the original one, you have like single lightsaber, you had like the dual wielding, I think, and then maybe you had like the double bladed, I want to say, or some variation of it. Well, in any case, these you now have like really specific lightsaber combats that you can specialize in and use in any given situation. You have like the single bladed one, your classic, of course. You have the double bladed, like good old Darth Maul style. You have the twin blades, which I definitely use a lot. Really like that style. You have like a really cool one that I was also a big fan of, which was the lightsaber and blaster. I love that. That was reminding me kind of like Kyle Katarn or something, who always liked to use blasters like in a lightsaber too, like way back in the day, in like playing those Dark Forces games or something. I was like, oh, I wonder if that's like a little bit of a wink and I think they definitely are doing like a little wink and nod to those Dark Forces like original Jedi Knight games, because you even get like you can customize Cal Kestis more with different outfits and hairstyles and facial hair. I had him; he had a good old space mullet, chat. Gave him a space mullet and a mustache, chat. We're just trying to make the Force great again. I loved it. So all the combat changes I thought were very good. The fast travel was great. Also, just new stuff to do with the characters. I like that a lot of Cal's relationships also kind of move forward. Love his relationship with Marin, who was like a Night Sister witch from the original game. She kind of joins you late. We do a lot more with her here, and I love the chemistry between the two of them. I thought it was very, very adorable. They're smooching now, Chad. They're smooching and hugging. And you know what happens when you start smooching and hugging? It leads to stooping, and I'm very excited for that. And then you just get these like other like wonderful characters. Obviously, we see the return of Seer, played by Deborah Wilson, who does such a great job. We got some other like great characters in the game as well. We get the character of Bodhi, who I was very interesting in the game. Some great villains in it too. There's also and a lot of like tertiary characters, like secondary tertiary characters. You just kind of you can check in on. Like, I forget his name, but Richard Horowitz, who's the voice of numerous cartoon characters, voiced Invader Zim, Billy from Billy and Mandy, currently doing a voice in several voices in like Hell of a Boss. I think he plays this little frog guy named, what's his name? Turgle? I want to say his name is Turgle. And I'm like, I love this man. As soon as you meet him, he's this kind of dumb, but well-meaning, but still kind of a bit of like a scammer, like little frog alien guy. And I remember when we were first introduced to him, like we had to save him from this guy who's basically Dirge, or the same species of Dirge. And after I save him and he goes off screen, he just does this little wow. He does this like just fucking weird just jump. I was like, I love this man. I thought he was great. And so a lot of that. And there's also like base building mechanics now. You can like customize. You kind of have like a hub world you can go back to with Grease. Like Grease is back in it as well. And you can go there. He has like his own restaurant cantina. And so they just added like a lot of cool like little things. It was more personable. And I really, really liked it. And there's some twists and there's some turns and there's some returning villains as well. And certainly some classic Star Wars characters. When they were featured, I think it actually made sense. It goes to show you that you can still tell amazing stories within the world of Star Wars. I think it also helps that Respawn was just they're totally separate from the story team like at Lucasfilm proper. I guess they're pretty much allowed to do whatever the fuck they want, and you could tell because so much of this game is so good and the story is fantastic. And I was like, this is just really refreshing and nice to get like an original Star Wars story, but also kind of you have some of that that little bit of that nostalgia in the background, but it's not at the forefront. It's not like in your face. And so I really, really liked that. I thought that was great. And another game I thought was great, chat. And this one just took me by surprise how much I enjoyed it. I love this game. I actually, putting this list together made me start thinking about it again, made me want to go ahead and play it. And my sixth best game of 2023 is Hi-Fi Rush. And this is developed by Tango Gameworks, who are probably best known for making the Evil Within games, Evil Within 1 and 2. I played the original Evil Within. I think it's fine. I think it's whatever. I think it's okay. I never played the second one. People say it's better. But this game is completely different from those. This is not a horror game. This is a rhythm-based action game. And it follows this young kid, this guy who proclaims himself a future rock star. He calls himself Chai. And he lives in this world that is kind of like taken over by this, huge corporation. And while visiting their factory, he ends up having his music player, basically what it would be his like MP3 player, like accidentally embedded into his body, like embedded into his chest through this experimental surgery where he's like being processed, and basically allows him to rhythmically fight and I guess just perceive the world through environmental like sounds. And he's labeled a defect, like we gotta kill him, and he ends up being hunted by the corporation, which is called Spectra, and he ends up meeting these people and forming this organization, this rebel cell to defeat the company and stop these evil executives from controlling the world. And I mean, the combat and the use of music was great. I love that. The color palette is beautiful. I mean, this feels like just a great cartoon. We get, I mean, the character models themselves look good. The world looks great. We even get these like 2D animated segments that are beautiful, mixed in with all the 3D segments as well. But really the thing that I just loved, outside of just the terrific score and music, I love the characters. Like, I love Chai. But then all the other supporting characters you meet along the way, like you meet this like little RoboCat named 808, who's like super adorable and farts little musical tunes in between cutscenes. And you know, and 808 can be taken over by other people and kind of help you in the environment. And so we meet Peppermint, who is like one of the first characters you interact with, and she's like the leader of this rebel cell against Spectra. And you know, I love that like every single like person has like a defect, you know, or something, quote unquote defect, or like has a certain mechanical part. Like she has a mechanical leg, and you know, she's very passionate. She has a lot of resentment towards the corporation. You find out as to why in it. My love, she's a bit of starts out having a bit of an antagonistic relationship towards Chai, but that changed over the course of the game. You have Macron, who is a former employee of Spectra, along with his robot companion Cinnamon, and they want to escape, and they used to be very altruistic, but the company has, you know, become evil, and so they want to get out of there. We're also just the characters like one of my video game girlfriends, Corsica, who was the head of security at Spectra, and she's Scottish as all hell, Chad, and she's beautiful, and I love her. And she also has like one of the best boss battles in the game, and of course, you know, she inevitably joins you in your adventures, and I love it. It's just a game just permeating with personality and color. And you know, I'm someone who hasn't really played that many rhythm-based games before, but this made me go like, wow, look what they did with this kind of like little weird subgenre and just added so much to it. I mean, I hope we get I don't know how this game, I know critically it was beloved, and for a long time it was like, this is like the game of the year, and it is certainly, it should be recognized as such. It should be held up as like, this is fantastic. And what TangoWorks did here, just something completely different from their horror titles, which I thought were, you know, whatever. At least the first one, I was like, I didn't really care for it. And so this was like, oh my god, this is such a wonderful palate cleanser. I hope I would love to get a sequel in this, or see these characters, or see this adapted. Like if they never do a sequel, I would love a animated adaptation, like multiple episodes or something. I think that would be great, like on an Amazon or on a Netflix. Like, and they like it's a perfect concept. They have these wonderful 2D action scenes that look so good. And so I really hope we get some more of this. Also, you know, you guys know I'm an avid poster collector. You can see all my posters around me. I love it. Like I was like, remember just playing the game, looking at these like artwork and around, like I want these posters. They look beautiful. So yeah, very impressed. One of my favorite games of the year. My 6th best video game of 2023. And chat. Moving on, top 5. Moving on to my top. I really enjoyed the bottom 5, chat. They were all great, but now we're moving on to the top 5. And my 5th best video game of 2023 is Alan Wake 2. Now, I am still playing Alan Wake 2, so that's perhaps why it's not higher on my list. You know, I still want to complete it. However, chat, what I've played, I've been very impressed by. Of course, this is developed by Remedy Entertainment, who have made many other great games across their career. I mean, Max Payne, Control, and of course the original Alan Wake, which at this point came out 13 years ago. I've played the original Alan Wake. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, for the longest time, people were wondering, are we going to get a sequel? You know, we got a couple of spinoffs, I believe, over the years, like Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which was fun. But people were asking if we were ever going to get like a proper sequel. And Remedy, you know, they work on all these different titles, and you know, the original Alan Wake, I think it did okay when it first came out. But I think in just years since, through re-releases and access on different platforms, I think eventually it just sold and sold and sold to the point where it's like, okay, we can do a sequel. And wow, I have just been so impressed by this game. You know, whereas the original Alan Wake is, I would describe it more as an action adventure with horror elements. This is a proper survival horror game. This is a proper horror survival game with some really twisted, mind-bending elements. The story, again, focuses on the novelist, the best-selling author, Alan Wake, who has been trapped by the darkness in this dark dimension for 13 years after the events of the original game, and he's attempting to escape by writing a horror story. involving another character that you play as, Saga Anderson, an FBI agent, and their paths constantly cross in the game, and you play as both of them, and you can jump between levels, either playing in the real world, it takes place mostly in Bright Falls with Saga, or in the darkness and the twisted reality that Alan is trying to escape from. And I've really enjoyed it. At first, I was like, man, this is really weird. This is so different from the original Alan Wake. But eventually, I got into its groove. I embraced its weirdness. And once I did that, it just did so many things that I just didn't expect. It surprised me so many times. And again, it had that Remedy style, which is in itself already weird, but incorporating in-game cutscenes, CGI cutscenes, real, actual actors, physical actors in these scenes, all blend them together, and you think that that's a recipe for disaster. But how they've done it, I think they've learned over time like what works and what doesn't, and I think they've kind of mastered it with Alan Wake 2. Because the voice acting is fantastic, the performances are really good and weird and so bizarre. The game also just has, I think, one of the best and most surprising levels I've ever played in the 2020s, and just in quite some time. I don't even want to say what it is, but it involves, funny enough, it involves music. It involves music, and it recaps the events of the previous game for people that may not have played it. And when it happened, I was so good, because apparently that section was featured in like the Game Awards. And I watched a little bit of Game Awards, but I didn't see that. I think I went to bed. And so I had no idea. And so I was so glad. I didn't see that, because when I saw it, you guys know, I had the biggest smile on my face playing that part. I was like, I thought like, oh, it's going to end. And then it didn't end. And then after that part, I was like, oh, it's going to end. And then it didn't end again. And then I was like, okay, this is it, right? And it's like, no, we got one more for you. And I was like, oh my God. And so that is when it was that level that I fell in love with it. I was like, and after that, I was so invested. Once you get to that level, I think you too will fall in love with the game as well. But yeah, Remedy has made something very special and very unique. I mean, they have a very specific aesthetic that no one else really has. And so I know this was a critical lauded game. I hope commercially it's performing very well. Again, I haven't completed it yet, so I'm near the end. And so maybe it would even be higher once I beat it. But what I have played, I've been so impressed by, and I hope to see more. I mean, we are getting more Remedy games. We are going to be getting the Max Payne games, and that's the other thing too. I should say, like, I love that this game is just it takes place in just the world of Remedy's universe, where it's in the world of Control, which I also really like. They make a ton of references to Control. I mean, their FBC is in it. The Federal Bureau of Control is in it. Yeah, I mean, Max Payne technically is in the game, chat, you know. Even though it is Sam Lake as the character model, the original Max Payne model, it's voiced by the late, great, sadly, chat, the late, great James McCaffrey, who just passed away not too long ago, only a couple weeks ago, and his performance is so good. And it makes me excited for the Max Payne remakes that I believe that Remedy is working on. I think through whatever deal of Rockstar, Remedy is able to do remakes of Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. So I'm excited for those, and I'm excited to complete Alan Wake 2. But wow, what a special game. What a special, weird little game. And moving on from my fifth favorite game, chat, my fourth best game of 2023, and that is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Now, like everybody, you know, I played Marvel's Spider-Man 1 back in 2018. Loved what Insomniac did. Their reinterpretations of Spider-Man and so many of his characters, playing around with the mythology and just creating their own unique spin on the character. Such a unique spin that I think for a lot of people, it might be one of their favorite, if not their favorite, interpretation of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and his characters. But they also introduced us to their version of Miles Morales, who is also Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2018, and also in the spin-off game Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I also played and also really, really enjoyed. And this game takes place after the events of those two, and it features both Peter Parker and Miles pretty much just struggling and taking the next big steps in their various personal lives. Miles trying to figure out, like, how do I balance being Spider-Man, going to college. Peter just constantly just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to maintain my relationship with MJ. I'm back with her. I can't hold down a job to save my life. I have a mortgage. Aunt May, listen, the true villain of this game is not Venom. It's not Kraven. It's Aunt May and the $500,000 mortgage that she forced upon Peter Parker. It's like, Aunt May, you're a son of a bitch. What you did to Peter. I couldn't believe it. But what I could believe, though, is that this is an excellent sequel, a fantastic sequel. And I love that you can both jump in between Peter and Miles at a lot of the times, at any given time in the game, but also you have, specific missions that are geared towards them. And I really love the story. It first starts out where you have to deal with Kraven the Hunter, who has come to New York City to hunt down super-powered individuals, specifically super villains, and you have to find out, why. But at the same time, we're dealing with the return of Harry Osborn, who was absent in the previous 2 games because we learned that Harry didn't go off on like a European vacation, abroad. He has this debilitating disease that Norman Osborn's been trying to find a cure for. Well, turns out it's the Venom symbiote. And I'll tell you right now, you guys know in my chat, but for those that don't know, I'm not a big Venom fan. I never really liked aesthetically, looks great. Looks really, really cool. No doubt about that. And I like just the black suit of, the symbiotes. It looks really cool, like on Peter or on Eddie Brock, whoever. But outside that, like Eddie Brock's such a nothing character. He has no depth whatsoever. And, but, fans have been obsessed with him for, God knows, at this point, 40 years now. I guess we're nearly 30 to almost 40 years at this point. And I just never was a big fan. I don't like the movies. I don't like what he's been featured in. Some of the cartoons I think he's been okay. I love him in Spectacular Spider-Man, but whatever. It was such an inspired choice on Insomniac's part to get rid of Eddie Brock and give the symbiote to Harry. I was like, thank God they did that, because we learned so much about the friendship and the history between Harry and Peter and MJ and their dynamic and that trio, and it made me feel invested in that story, and then in turn made me feel invested in the Venom story, which of course the symbiote is on Harry. That's what's keeping him alive. Goes to Peter. He has it now. Things happen. Horrible things happen, and eventually the symbiote goes back to Harry. He becomes Venom, and I love that. I loved it. It's like you finally. It's to me, this is the best interpretation of Venom of all time. Like, I don't think anything comes close to it. I loved it. I actually gave a shit. And you have him voiced by Tony Todd, Candyman, which was amazing. I am the writing on the wall. I am the whisper in the classroom. It's like, yeah, that guy. Let's do it. That was great. That was inspired casting. And I mean, much like the original game, like the traversal system is awesome. The combat is very, very good. I think the combat's even better in the sequels. They're so often the fast travel is instantaneous now, which is great. Just the power of this technology that we have. It's just incredible. But I rarely use the fast travel because I just love web swing. The web swing is amazing across all 3 of these Spider-Man games. It just feels so good. But even like the interpretation of Kraven, I thought was great. You can definitely tell that they were heavily inspired by like one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, one that I've actually reviewed not too long, a couple weeks ago, which is Kraven's Last Hunt. So much of that DNA is in that character, and that was great. There's some other little surprises too, some other villains that show up, and it's like, oh, that's who that is, and that's what this is about. It's like, that's really neat. Like, if I have any criticisms of the game, it's there are some side missions that are just annoying and kind of go nowhere, and I just wish weren't in it. Like, they have like this one awful graffiti mission. I'm just like, I understand, this character in connection of Miles, but I don't want to play as her. This fucking sucks. I didn't like the graffiti mission. Some of the other side missions were just kind of but there were some good ones. It was like a weird balance. Like, sometimes they were like, oh, I really like these side missions. These are really fun. And there's some like, well, that was kind of a wet fart. So that was disappointing. But I loved the game more than I didn't. And also it was just a fun streaming experience. We can create our own mythology of these characters, and with Kraven's whole thing. He's not that he wants to like find the most dangerous prey. It's just that he wants to come. He's never been able to come. You know, and he's always edging. He's like, I want that harder. And I thought that was great. I love that we came up with our own pantheon, our own rogues gallery, from Aunt May and her mortgage, which she forced upon us, to the lizard and his obsession with farm animals or whatever, old McDonald's shit, and to just, you know, to Craven himself just trying to come. I thought that was really fun. And the bike riding. Thank you, Deadpool. The bike terrorist. Oh my God. Like, yeah, I couldn't believe how fun that was. Accidentally discovering the bike stuff and then participating in the bike stuff and just being an absolute menace on the bike. What they could have done, they could have gotten rid of some of those lesser side missions and just put more bike missions in, so I could have just been the crazed bike terrorist that I always should have been. I loved it, chat. That was so much fun. So that's why Spider-Man 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is my 4th best video game of 2023. And chat, my 3rd best video game of 2023, won't surprise anybody, is Dead Space Remake. Now, you guys probably know I'm a huge Dead Space fan. I've played it, countless times throughout my life, and I've played it many, many times on stream, specifically the original 2008 game developed by EA Redwood Shores, who would later go on to be a Visceral and make the sequels, and eventually went defunct because EA is horrible. But, you know, I think thanks to the success of Capcom's revitalization of Resident Evil, starting with like Resident Evil 7, and then eventually doing these remakes for like 2 and then 3, and then obviously doing Resident Evil Village, and then most recently, you know, obviously 4, that EA was like looking at that like, oh, well, we got a horror property we've been sleeping on for years. Let's bring back Dead Space. And it's sadly not Visceral who's making it, but it is Motive, EA Motive Studios, who have done some games before. I remember playing their Star Wars Squadrons game, kind of like a spiritual successor to Rogue Squadron. But they made the remake, and I was a little concerned because I wasn't the biggest fan of Squadrons for a variety of reasons. But at the same time, I was very excited just because I just love Dead Space. Dead Space to me is my favorite. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and it's my favorite horror game of all time. It took the gameplay formula popularized by Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil 4, and just made it better and just set it in my favorite horror setting, which is a sci-fi horror setting. This is a game that's heavily inspired by Ridley Scott's Alien and John Carpenter's The Thing in terms of its designs. You know, Ridley Scott's Alien in terms of its setting itself on a derelict spaceship, and in terms of the monster designs, very much John Carpenter's The Thing, just grotesque body horror, and also incorporating a little bit of Event Horizon, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I respect. And creating just a wonderful and horrific and grotesque and disgusting experience. And EA Motive nailed it. They nailed it. They made it. I mean, it looks even better. It plays even better. They brought back Isaac's original voice actor, Gunnar Wright, to actually voice the character properly. Even though technically he did voice him in the original one, he just did he just did all the stomping sounds. But it's him, and they're using his face now, which I think is really cool. It's like the guy, like, I voiced this character, but that's not my face, and now it's my face. They played around with the environments, but not to such a degree where it felt off. It's just, they just made all these great, wonderful quality fixes, but the light, I mean, the original lighting and the sound, and the level design and the original Dead Space is so good, but they somehow made it even better. You never know what's coming behind a corner. Just you can hear the vacuum and the bulkhead and the grotesque creatures and the grinding of the gears. It just so thoroughly immersed you on the USG Ishimura as you're playing as you know, Special Engineer Isaac Clarke trying to investigate what the fuck happened on this ship. And I loved it. And they added to the lore. So much of the original Dead Space, I think the biggest criticism you can say is like, story's fine, story's okay, whatever. They made the story better. They gave it more context. Like, they made Nicole not just a generic NPC, but an actual character with a sense of history and relationship, and you learn more about her and what happened with her on this. That is really good. Everybody else too, they gave more to do. And, Dr. Mercer, they made Elizabeth Cross. They gave things for Elizabeth Cross and Jacob Temple. I was like, yes, all of this is so good. Like, I think if I have one criticism, I don't like what they kind of ended up doing with Dr. Mercer at the very end, but so much what they did with him was awesome throughout the game. That's my only complaint. And then they fixed the ending. They fixed a plot hole. They fixed a big plot hole in the original Dead Space ending. It's like, that makes so much sense. What's going on? And why Isaac's interacting with Nicole all the time. I was like, oh, they fixed it. And so I love this. I love this game. It made me, I played it twice last year. I probably could have played some of these other titles I wanted to play. I was like, it's the kind of game where, as you guys know, when I play video games, it's on streaming. Like, I rarely kind of play games offline just because I'm so busy with so many other things like in my life right now, believe me. From content creation to going to watch Night Swim and everything else in between. But there are a few games every year where after I'm done playing them on stream, I was like, God, I want to keep playing this. I just want to keep playing this. And Dead Space Remake was just one of those games. I was like, I just want to jump back in. I just want to play. I want to upgrade everything. I want to explore every nook and cranny. I want to get every credit. I want to 100% it. I want to, and that's, nowadays I never think about doing that, but it's like, I love this so much. That's what I want to do. And so, yeah, Dead Space Remake is my third favorite video game of 2023. And I hope they do a remake of 2. And the thing is, like, 1 and 2 have aged so wonderfully well over the years. They still look pretty good. The gameplay hasn't aged at all. But I hope they do 2, and I hope they remake of 2, and I hope they just fucking say, like, let's just do a completely new 3. Let's just do it. Or maybe just do a 4th one and, just do that. But in any case, I want EA Motive to make more Dead Space games because they did such a great job. And then moving on, my number two, and this was hard. This was difficult. It was between the two of these things, and I'm like, I don't know which one I would go with. Maybe today I'm feeling like I'm gonna put this one over this, but then the next day I'll be like, no, I'm gonna reverse it. But in any case, my second best video game of 2023 is Resident Evil 4, and this is just the latest chapter in the renaissance of the Resident Evil franchise by Capcom. People you might not remember, but a few years ago, like a decade ago, the Resident Evil franchise wasn't in the best of places. I mean, yeah, we had 4, and then after that, the franchise started going more of an action direction. Got a lot of shitty, awful spin-offs. Remember what was it? Raccoon City? What was it? Operation Raccoon City? Remember that? Ugh, no, thank you. And then like the mainline series started to suffer. I know 5 has its fans and it made a lot of money, but it wasn't a horror game anymore. It did give us some great memes. It did give us, Chris Redfield punching boulders and Albert Wesker just going complete global saturation. I love that, but I still wouldn't say it's a good game. And then 6 is just dog water bad. That's how bad that. And so it was in a bad place, but the franchise was resuscitated with 7. Changing the perspective, focusing on new protagonists, but still at the same time, like, we're kind of taking it back to a mansion, but it's a whole new place, new characters, but still, but they made it scary again. Love 7. And then after that, we started to hear like they want to do remakes, and then we got like remakes for 2, and then 3, and then Village, and then everyone's like, well, they got to do 4 now, and they did 4, chat, and Resident Evil 4. Yes, it's one of my favorite video games of all time. It's a fantastic game, much like Dead Space, but I think Resident Evil 4 Remake is better. I think it's better than the original Resident Evil 4. It makes so many fixes, some quality of life fixes, chat. They improve the gameplay. I mean, the look obviously is dramatically different, but they also just fix stuff that, that were weak aspects of the original game. Not that I dislike Resident Evil 4. I love Resident Evil 4. I've played, how many times have I played it on stream? I'll keep playing it, right? But I love that they did a total new reinvention of Ashley Graham. Like, Ashley Graham, the original game, sucks. She's annoying. She gets you killed quite often, And, I mean, it's just not a great character. And here, I actually liked Ashley. I actually liked having her around. I liked the interactions between her and Leon. Which I thought I would never say that, but it's true. Like, I thought the character had a lot of charm. Same with other characters, chat. With Luis, who he gets a lot more to do, and he has a bigger hand in the story and his backstory. And I liked him a lot more. How they just change all the environments. Like, I'm like, okay, how are you going to make these sections, these iconic sections, even better? Like specifically, the village and like the castle. And I really do think they do. I think they do. I think they make a lot of fixes to those. I think they make they incorporate more horror. Like, as much as I love the original Resident Evil 4, and I do, everyone says 5 was when it went off the rails. It's like, you can make an argument that technically it started with 4, where it became less of, especially when we get to the last third of the game, where it's an action-adventure game. But I feel like it started with with the 4th game, and it went in that direction. I think they listened to that criticism, and they incorporated more horror in it. Even at the third, like the third, no one, I'd be very shocked if people say like, oh, the original third of Resident Evil 4 is better than the remake. I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, here, they incorporate a lot more horror. Like, still, it's the most action-oriented area, there's no doubt. But like the whole section, I mean, the Regenerators are already scary, but the how they reinterpret the section with the Regenerators, oh my God. Just the sounds they're making in the dark, and you just see their big, thick, jiggly booty butt cheeks. It's like, ah! It just slithers on the floor towards you. Iconic. I like the little side missions they had in there. I thought that was cool. I mean, just, the weapons, everything, how you can approach like certain areas. That's all great. Yeah, I was just so blown away by all the changes they made, and I thought I'm trying to think, like, was there a change I did not like? Like, I think I picked like one small little narrative change in Dead Space. I was like, I didn't like how that ended up with that character. But it's like, I think I liked everything. Like, I don't know. I was disappointed that they didn't give Salazar his hat. Although they reference him in his little hat with the collectible. Like, I wish he had his hat. But I kind of like his weird, very, very foppish. He looks like a grandma. He's like your little chubby grandma who just wants to kill you. It's like, that's what he looks like. I wish he had his hat maybe. Outside of that, I loved him. And I was able to obviously replay the game, but I also was able to play, because people were wondering, are they gonna do like the Ada Wong DLC? Were they going to incorporate the Separate Ways DLC? And they did, and I thought that was even better than the original DLC to the first game. I was like, oh, this is so cool, and seeing from Ada Wong's perspective. And I like what they do with her, and her outfit I thought was, still sexy as hell, but also the utilitarian made sense, but she still looks great, It's just, yeah, I just liked all the changes. I really did. I'm trying to think if there was anything that I didn't like, and there isn't. I thought it was good. I think the story was better. I thought many of the characters were better. The level design was absolutely fantastic, and it's a game I'm going to keep playing. Much like Dead Space Remake, it's a game I'm going to keep playing for probably the rest of my life. I loved it. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Oh, you know what? Yeah. Okay. One criticism: the voice acting for Ada Wong is not as good as the original voice actress. I agree with that. Yeah, I think she got a lot of hate. Seeing her, I think more in the DLC. Seeing her speak, like hearing her speak more, I was like, oh, okay, I'm vibing with it. I was good with it. But like in the original base game, yeah, not as good. I'll agree with that. But other than that, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I loved it. But, chat, we got to go ahead. We got to move on to my best, my number one best video game of 2023, and that is Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I have to state this at the top. I have not completed this game. I don't think I've even completed technically the first chapter. Now, before everyone goes like, why is it number one? Because even within that first chapter, even within that first act, I went, oh my God, this is what all modern RPG should aspire to be. The breadth and the variety and just the craftsmanship put in this title is very, very obvious within the first several hours of playing it. Now, this, again, is the third main installment in the Baldur's Gate series, which has been dormant for years. And, of course, it's based heavily off the tabletop fantasy role-playing game that is Dungeons and Dragons. The story is set primarily in the Sword Coast of Western Faerun. And you take on a character which you create, and you encounter numerous other companion characters, such as a Lae'zel, a Githyanki fighter, Shadowheart, a half-elf cleric, a Starion, a fabulous a high-elf vampire rogue, Gale, a human wizard who is lying to you about why he's eating those amulets all the time, Will, a warlock, and my favorite Dommy mommy chat. I love her with all my heart. That is my video game girlfriend, Karlak, a tiefling barbarian, and many other companion characters. I'm sure that you get along the way, and you're trying to get this weird hentai abomination out of your goddamn head, or you're gonna turn to a squid person. And also in an attempt to just save the world. But I remember there was this one day, I think when I downloaded the game, and I think I first played it on stream with you guys. I remember playing it, and I did it, and I was like, I'm having fun. And then I kept playing it. That I have to admit, I kept playing it offline. And maybe I took an edible at the time. I think I definitely took an edible. And I ended up just messing with the character creation. I ended up just creating multiple characters, playing with all the designs, everything, creating dwarves and tieflings and gnomes and elves and humans and dragonborn, everything in between. And I realized like how long I was doing it for. I looked over and it was like 5 a.m. in the morning. I was like, oh my God, I messed up. But the character creation system and the breadth and the variety of that and all the different subclasses and backstories and backgrounds and all the little changes, that just shows you the quality of the title itself within the character creation system that Larian provided us, and then actually playing the game. And at first, I have to admit, like being kind of overwhelmed, like, oh, how does this work, and what do I do here? And then you realize, like, oh, I can do this, and wait, can I do this? I can, and I was like, wow. And the way you're able to approach a situation, whether it be through combat or dialogue or subterfuge or stealth, it's just like you can play this game so many different ways and have all of those different ways and experiences be satisfying. And again, I just, I would go like to one place and be like, can I go here yet? Oh, maybe not. I'll come back. And then I do something and it's like, oh, I found like an object and that lets me access this area. I'm going to go back to that area. And I go back to the area and it's like, it opens up a whole new thing. I was like, what is this? And then I find like this mummy man. And it's like, hi, mummy man. He's like, hey, thanks for freeing me. I want to hang out at your camp now in case any of your characters die or if you need like levels or bonuses or stuff, I'm going to be there. He's like, oh, fuck, thanks, mummy man. Appreciate that. And he hangs out with me now. It's like, this is the kind of game where it's kind of similar to Elden Ring in a way, where every time you turn a corner, you discover something so unique and so exciting and interesting. And even though those games are different in terms of how they play and their combat, but it's that sense they provide, that wonderful sense of adventure that makes you want to keep playing, that makes you realize like, wow, I'm investing so much of my time into this, but it feels earned, and I feel respected. I feel like so immensely respected as the player, and I don't feel like I'm being manipulated or forced into like monetization practices or things, or like they're trying to rush me through this section or anything like that. It just feels like Larian's just like, hey man, we thought all this through. We know how you might approach this situation. Here's like a variety of seemingly infinite amount of options to do so. I was like, man, and that's what I'm saying. I go back to what I said at the top. Why I feel so confident in saying this is my favorite game of the year, despite not finishing, is because it is what the standard of modern RPGs should be held at now because of what they did. Who would have thought something like this could be made? And so now that's why probably it's freaking out so many people in the industry at this point. Why they're all like, oh, we can't be held to the standard. I was like, why not? I think you should. I mean, I would love my RPGs. I would love whether it be from Mass Effect to Elder Scrolls to Fallout. I would like, no, now we expect this quality. This is what I want. This is what I want. Do this, or get damn near close to it. And I hope they do. But at the very least, at the very end, I could safely say that This is an amazing experience. I think it's also a great introduction to Dungeons and Dragons as well. I think really, that too. We've had so many great gateways in the D&D, and in such a quick succession, in such a truncated amount of time. Whether it be The Legend of Vox Machina or Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, and now something like Baldur's Gate, which has kind of just captured the pop culture zeitgeist. I still see just memes. I'm getting more memes than ever, more memes and gifs and funny little videos and animatics than ever. Chad, like people are just like they love this. People who you wouldn't think would be into D&D or into RPGs, and they are just so immersed. And that itself shows you why this is so special, why this is so great, why this should be the modern standard of RPGs, of modern RPGs. And so that is why Baldur's Gate 3 is my game of the year and why it's the best video game of 2023. But I love all these games. All these games gave me amazing experiences, especially with you guys, and I'm so happy we got to share all that with each other. It was so much fun, and we're going to continue playing these games, and I'm so excited to keep playing them and get through my backlog for 2023 and also play new titles in 2024. But those are my top 10 best video games of 2023 with honorable mentions. What about you guys? What are some of your best video games of 2023? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Are there some things that you liked or you didn't like? Please let me know.